My runner beans, and we're going to cook those up. So I'm measuring out about 6 cups. Then I realize there's just a little bit more in the jar, so I dump them into my pot. I'm adding water because I'm going to soak these overnight, but first I want to go through and make sure there's no debris, little sticks, maybe some rocks, whatever. Here's what I'm going to add to the soup. I've got some chicken stock, some onions, and some ham shanks. And here I'm going to chop up those onions. So I've got about three pounds and change on beans. So I'm going to add in both the onions, put a little olive oil in there as you saw, and I'm going to sweat these a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in 3 ham shanks. Now, they've got a lot of meat on them. You could use ham hocks if you want to. I'm choosing to use ham shanks. And they have, they're smoked, so they've got great flavor, but they also have plenty of salt. So I'm not a big salter before I add when I'm cooking beans. A couple schools of thought on that, but you decide, you do you. But of course, there's salt in my homemade chicken stock, and there's salt in the ham shanks. So anyway, I'm pouring 2 quarts of chicken stock in there. Yes, that's fat at the top, but fat is flavor, so we don't care about that. Now I'm putting it on a simmer, and this is really about how high you want it. This is like a medium simmer. You don't want a rolling boil when you're cooking beans. These are a big bean. They're like a lima bean size, so they're going to take a little while to cook, and overall I think it takes about 3.5 hours. So we're just going to let them simmer away. You can see here some of the stock volume has dropped because we're boiling with the cover off, and that's okay because I like a little gravy kind of with my beans. And you can see here that the ham shanks are cooking apart. That's what we want to see. We want to see that, and then in a few minutes here, or a few seconds here, we're going to be testing some beans to see if they're done. And really what we do is we pull out beans onto a spoon and we give it the old squish test. Get some of the biggest beans you can find, and if they pass the squish test, then they're good and done. If they don't, then cook them a little longer, but you don't want those beans falling apart. So just be cautious and give the bean a taste if it passes the squish test. And then you might want to give your broth a taste too. And this is the point where you're going to want to adjust the seasoning if you're going to do that at all. So let's see, what am I going to do next? I'm going to get a bowl and put it to the side of the beans, and I'm going to pull the meat out. I've let it cool a little bit, but I'm going to pull all the meat and all the bones out because now is the time that I want to take off the good meat from the bones, and I'm going to save the fat and the extra bones themselves, and I'm going to make another beans probably with that, with the fat, on the outside, and the bones just to add flavor to maybe some split pea soup or something like that. But you don't want any big fat chunks or anything like that in your beans. And again, this isn't a soup. This is more like a side dish, or more like a hearty chili, or maybe even a stew. There's some gravy, but you don't want a lot of it in there. And you can see how much meat there is in there too. And this is how I serve it for myself. That's me there. I like to use cornbread, and I put my cornbread in the bottom of the bowl, and then I serve my beans or chili or whatever right over the top. And there's Sarah there hoping she gets a little bit. And then Mr. Old School Prepper is here, and he just likes his cornbread on the top. Sometimes he crumbles it up. Sometimes he just has it as an aside. So you're going to see him dish up a good hearty bowl of it here. This was great. It's always better the second day. So if you can, cook it one day and then let it sit overnight.